So we're going in a different direction, and I have three things to take care of right off the bat here. One, I had to change 90% of this talk right before I came here. Lawyers advised me, mainly because of patents that were being awarded because of this. Two, I'm not trying to call out anyone or showcase anyone, and I'm not being paid to advertise, but we will cover some name brands and some things. And three, this information I'm not trying to scare people with, but it's available, and these are technologies that are being used now. So with that, if you need to get a hold of me, I'm not going to go through who I am, because I've been around for 2 decades in this business, so find me after the talk. This talk will be posted up on GitHub later this evening. So we're going to go in a different direction completely with what you're used to on DNA tracking. And before we get into that, how many of you hand your password out to law enforcement? Or how many of you give your password or credentials to others? We're going to talk about stuff tonight that is basically the same equivalent, and most of you probably already have done that without even realizing. To get started, just briefly covering this, we're going over biometrics. And biometrics are basically anything originating from the human body to be used as a marker and identifier. And now we have DNA falling into that mix. And how many of you have done DNA testing? Anyone submitted out there? You have basically given your password out to individuals. You've given your credentials out to people. You've given a very unique identifier out to individuals. The one thing about this, we're not going to go into this too much. That's a whole nother talk that we found out about these services. These services, there's a lot of problems. The best one is we found most of them use Flash as a plugin for their service. They either use other services in web construction that is not secure. But we're not going to get into that. One of the biggest things about all this is they don't really manage your data well. They also, if you read the EULA that they give you, this is basically for entertainment purposes, and they're not really giving you accurate results, nor do they pretend to. Most of them you pay for. However, there's quite a few of them out there that'll pay you in upwards of $4,000 to $5,000 for the results that you submit to it, because they sell those to a variety of other individuals. However, for this talk, what we're going to be talking about is this is information now that is becoming used as your password, as your marker, as a way of identifying you and accessing systems now. It's also being used to track you at a whole nother level. So what I'm basically going to be talking about tonight here, we only have about 20 minutes, is keeping yourself safe as things are changing with technology. How many of you have gone to a trade show or a convention where they have 3D scanning and they 3D scan you and do like action figures and stuff? Do you know where that data goes? Do you know what it can be used for?
Right to chase the street!
Like the chess pieces up here, there's hacker chess, where people scan pictures of hackers in 3D to be used and printed as chess pieces. That's cool. I'm not saying anything against that, but that's the information that you need to unlock, say, an iPhone or other computers. A whole other litany of things can be done with that now. You need to pay more and more attention to your biometrics as you proceed along in this world. And that's not just what we think about fingerprints and other things. It's your weight, it's your gait, it's video footage of you, and a whole litany of other things. And now we have DNA. The number one thing is to keep under control of all your data. So taking note of little things that might be convenient, like that self-checkout line at the store. It has a camera and a litany of other things that monitor you and what information you have about you. That may be convenient, but you might want to skip out on that. So we're going to get into DNA tracking. DNA tracking is not new, and it's implemented in more places than you can think about. What DNA tracking is you're allowing something in a production chain or just in the normal, what you'd have a chain of custody, to be marked with a non-viewable tag. So what they do is they take DNA markers, a protein, and they will apply it to an object. But that protein is unique and stored in a database with a unique identifier. So in an easier term, they basically take something that they can spray on that you're only going to be able to view via a UV lamp or a certain detection device that is going to glow or have a certain indicator that is tied back to a very specific tag. You can very easily do this to register your own tag and information. The problem with this is it's deployed in more stores and stuff. Tesco, 2 years ago, if not a little further back, Tesco stores, you walk into the supermarket, you get sprayed with a DNA curtain. And what they do at that point is they can do two things. One, they can track you, and two, it helps with loss prevention. The biggest thing that they do DNA tracking for is loss prevention. You think about a bank, they throw a dye pack into a bag of cash when they're being robbed. What happens? It explodes, and that money is now marked with the ink and the dye. It's not usable anymore and has to be destroyed. When you have shoplifting prevention at a store, you have those little dye packs on like clothing. So when someone walks out and it explodes, that piece of clothing is not usable anymore. It destroys the clothing or the object that it's attached to. With DNA tracking, you can spray or mark the object and it doesn't damage or taint the object. No one sees it. There's not a visible mark. So for loss prevention, it's a godsend. You can track, you can tag your assets too. So like your personal laptops, rather than putting a big, huge tag on your laptop that says property of fill in the blank company name, you can tag your laptop with a DNA indicator and have tracking and everything there that you would with a big sticker. You also protect your employees that way so you don't have attribution of knowing where they're at and where they're from. Stores do abuse it to the point of spraying you as you walk in to track your movement around the stores. That's kind of creepy. So loss prevention, again, like I said, they're able to tag everything with a marker or indicator. The other thing that it's used for is crime prevention. These kits that they have, I'll show a little example of shortly. They have signs that you can post up in the window that say, hey, this is protected by DNA tracking and protection to help detour people. This is really great for crime prevention. If you have someone that breaks into a store, they get sprayed with the DNA. Whatever they take or steal is sprayed with the DNA too, which gives the police a very unique marker and a very easy way of catching people and tying everything back in a very nice, neat chain of custody. It is kind of creepy, but it's very cool to play with. So how it works is you can buy a little kit. You guys can do this now at home. It's quite fun, kind of creepy too. You basically mark it with this dye, and it's clear. It does not leave any scent, does not leave any indication that it is there. You can view it under a black light to see what's there. So if you were to take a sampling of it, it would show the exact DNA key sequence that you need to mark up and match in the database. So if you had, say, an asset stolen, you could work with law enforcement, give them that key and that information, and they can match that very easily. But it's invisible. You don't have attribution, and it goes on everything. And as you see in that corner picture there, that's what it looks like when you walk through one of those sprays at a store. Now, it's to note that most of the stuff that you're going to encounter at a store is going to last maybe 1 week to 2 weeks, and it'll wash off. You're not going to see it. The stuff that you mark your laptops, your assets with, that can last up to 2 years, 3 years, if not more. We've tested it for up to 2 years at a time without any wear or tear on it. It's very easy, but it's very kind of creepy as you start seeing that, hey, we're able to start tracking stuff at a DNA level. We're starting to use DNA to mark things and move things about stores. We're starting to track people at an individual level as they move through a store to see what they purchase and what their purchase habits are. So again, a lot of people have asked like how long it lasts and whatnot, or what does it look like. It's literally like a clear spray or application. If you're going through a curtain at a store, you will not smell it, see it, or feel it as it's sprayed down. We've seen everything from beige to fluorescent orange applicators, or a little thing that looks like a spray bottle that you'll see at the entrance of a store. Banks or other asset recovery or loss prevention, they have individual sprays or applicators that they can spray into a bag of money real quickly or onto things before they're stolen. So as you can see, usually they're marked. A lot of places will put up stuff to mark it and say, hey, we do this on site premises. Most places that use this for crime prevention see a 20% drop immediately in crime after they do this, simply by the deterrence of people knowing how it works and how fast and effective it helps law enforcement to track down and attribute things. Literally, if you come into contact with it, whatever you touch gets smeared off with that, and they literally catch you red-handed. So they will literally post most places where it's at. If not, like I said, usually a little orange box or a beige box, kind of in the walk area where you walk into places. So the other thing we found out, which was very interesting, is someone weaponized this, of course. So you can buy little kind of like paint pellet balls with this stuff on it that they use to mark people in crowds, say for protests or other things where they have to control crowds. They can spray this out or hit individuals in a targeted manner and thus follow them around, see how they interact. And it makes, on one hand, things easier for riot control and police to understand and deal with a riot from how it functions, as well as to attract people in a large setting. So a couple pellets would cover this whole room. It's pretty interesting. We haven't been able to get a hold of one of these yet, but we will soon, and that'll probably be another talk. But again, with all this, my intent is to just basically bring up and not warn you guys like the boogeyman, but let you know that, hey, DNA testing is a very slippery slope, because now you need to protect every single thing that your body originates, excretes, or creates, because that's a unique identifier. Biometrics is no longer just single fingerprints or your retina scan or your voice pattern. It now extends on into much, much more invasive things, and the technology is here now. So these kits you can go out and play with and purchase and use very easily, and they are quite fun to start messing with. If you want to know a simple application, like I said before, use it for asset tagging. If you have laptops for your employees, they always have the big tag on it that says property of, say, CenturyLink. If I'm at an airport as a bad guy, I can see where that guy works. I know much more about them. I can really directly attribute people. Or if I steal that laptop, I know exactly where it came from and where there's other laptops from. The third thing that happens from that is putting those huge asset tags on your laptops and company property really diminishes trust and morale with your employees. You can use the DNA tagging to mark things without anyone seeing anything, and you have a direct record of that. So there are good applications of this, but there's a lot of really creepy stuff afoot. And the whole DNA tracking through the applications and submitting your results to like 23andMe, that's a whole nother talk, because we found out many other websites were very flawed, very open, and the results were not what you thought. Any questions? Yeah.
You're talking about enzymes splicing on a tape, right?
What it is actually a protein sequence, and so they'll give you a protein sequence. The question was the enzymes, or what is it? What is the composition? It's a protein sequence, and what they do is they go through a database and they'll be like, hey, Bob gets 001, and that's a very unique protein sequence, and that goes into your spray only or your applicator, and then you can put it on all your equipment. Or if you use it, say, like for shoplifting, you know that if someone was sprayed with this, you see them glowing in the dark under a UV lamp. And you can directly sit there and have law enforcement pull up the results from the DNA sampling. Like you see the guy in the corner there, that's what you would look like with that stuff. It lasts about a week or two.
Are you saying that's always fogging or spraying, or is that like an intentional being around for fog?
Okay, the question was, is it always on? Is it always fogging? Is it always spraying? It depends. Now, like at Tesco, they have it set up in some stores with a UV beam, so when you walk into the store, where you would hear like a ding-dong, to announce someone walking in, they do a little spritz. Or some places have it set up and rigged for after hours. If someone's going to break in, bust in, then it sprays, knowing that it's after hours, connected to a timer. So it can be applied in a variety of ways, but there's no one that's going to be constantly fogging a place. Some stores, which I won't mention, will have applicators throughout the store, and they spritz you so they can figure out where you've been, what you picked up, what order, so they can do inventorying better, and they can track and know where to place items throughout the store better. Any other questions? That's it if there's no more questions. If you guys need anything, come back and see me. I do have VR set up if you guys want to play with virtual reality for security training tonight.